This week's topic is the capitalist city. Reading for a little different. It was one of them talked about 1800s industrial revolution. One of them talked about democracy and climate change, and another one talked about how real estate has kind of developed into a financial asset. But they all kind of take it out in a different way. So they all ask a similar question, and that's the question.
Third question is who has the most influence over the shape of society? Yeah.
What?
Why do you think that's what's your opinion?
I'd be asked, those who voted for government who's now 12, she's asking you to raise your hand and have your opinion was why, when you put that, the vote. We have 12 people that have something to say.
I think all the other categories have to be involved.
What?
All the other categories have to be involved with the government to make a choice for their, to get the decision. That's fair. I also think having power and having money, you wouldn't have in order to have a bonus, you need to have investors to invest into your idea, want to continue with that idea, to build it. If you wouldn't have any, you had no money. So it's also very important to realize money is a huge aspect in influencing how society kind of works.
I feel like it's also kind of a majority vote type of thing. It's even if a group of 5 people say we should do this, but 10 in the government say we can't, but we should be asked, they're gonna be able to do it.
Right.
Sorry.
I guess another thing why it's so much change in society. I mean, again, they hold legally monopoly power and resources.
Whoever said other, do you want to say what's your other option? No. Okay. Yes.
I said other. I don't know why I was feeling maybe the mom or I don't know. It's I just think about people that you don't know who are involved in things that you'll never be suspicious.
Oh, yeah. I was on the PRCP or that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
That is a good one, huh? So sometimes, you say there's some people that meet in certain islands, and they decide for all. Okay, I have heard that theory.
Or they spend $277 million on one presidential candidate, and they have a disproportionate influence on the opinion of everyone in that.
Oh yeah, or they do social media campaign to influence the vote of the people.
Yes.
But I got you.
By the bottom, they have
Okay.
Oh,
that's not really sense.
Pay for the-
You see data.
Yeah, I mean, like, I guess like the other aspect is like, obviously, like, as a community, like seeing, like, living the experience, like, living in the city, like, should influence, like, how, like, it's shaped, but at the end of the day, it's like, if you don't have money, like, I don't really know what it's gonna, like, if you have $0, like, nothing's gonna, like, change. You're gonna have your voice, yes, but at the end of the day, like, if you don't have money to back it up, it's like, not gonna like, work.
So I have one question just for me to understand. When you say government, who is the government? Any person who voted for 13, the highest one. So who is the government? So when you think government, what do you think? Governments are too many things, you know. There are levels of government, people in government, institutions in the government. When you say government shapes the society, what is government for you? Yeah.
Well, there's different levels of government. So we have like municipal, state, and federal government. And then each of them have their own powers. For example, like the federal government can set its own laws, state government, and then the city can do its own.
You say that all of them shape the society.
Yeah, but like if we look at like because all the other state rates, so I think the states have more power than the federal government probably. I mean, the cities probably have even more jurisdiction.
Okay, so we can move. So I have to say that these teams are learning. So I remember the first team just basically you have very biased, really biased questions. Now we are having a sense of some opinions because you design that in a way that opens different possibilities. So good for that. So one of the purpose of this class is for you to learn how to research. And doing a good research includes doing good surveys. So this service is working in a way that creates discussion, and thank you for that. Well done.
It's interesting, one point, who read the piece about, using a lottery to gather a group of citizens to make decisions? Who read that one? Yeah. What does that tell us? The fact that there is such a thing as a lottery to get citizens into the room to make decisions on behalf of the population. What does that tell us about what is not working with the formal government system? Like, why would that be a useful thing to have a lottery and get people into decision-making authority? Yeah, go ahead.
I have a question about the lottery. I didn't read that text. Is the lottery system, is that only for property owners, or does that include renters? Because that's the big problem, is that renters are not included in city.
It's now, so we don't discriminate against property owners, non-property owners, people who are themselves property. You don't do that anymore. So my understanding is a lottery of everyone who expressed an interest.
That's in the state. Decision making, I guess.
Yeah, decision making locally. The implication is that the formal government system is so distorted and so corrupted by lobbyists and payoffs that actually to get access to a true democratic voice, you have to open it up and bring people in by lottery. Randomly selected citizens. It implies that randomly selected citizens are in a better position to represent the larger common good than elected officials.
Yeah.
Wow. What a condemnation.
Thank you for saying that. My God.
However, I'm gonna say that I'm going to have a discussion over this, but that will help me to connect with one of my slides. There are some people that believe that for certain aspects, it's better to pick the people who knows about the topic,
The technocrats.
the technocrats. So imagine that you have to decide health policy. Ask the
Okay.
physician, ask the doctor. Don't ask me, I don't know about that. But don't select me randomly. But if you want to do a decision about urban projects, you can have Robert and I, because we know about that. Why, I don't know, a biologist will, or a physician will take a decision about how to design a good street if we are the ones that know. That's another model. Not selected randomly, but selected then by their capacity. And this is the more technocratic model. So again, I don't want to happen, that will be part of the.
Yeah, it's a question on the board.
It's a question on the board.
I don't know, I just have something to add, just from my experience, I just remember like, city planners are the ones, the experts, but they don't even have a voice in what the city council decides in the end. So I thought that was really interesting, it's the politicians that make all the decisions, even though they're informed by the experts, they can just ignore what the experts say, and that's just what.
That is a good argument for
And
technocratic
I-
movement, that is a good argument.
How did
And I
you
saw
know that?
I saw that first person sitting in city council meetings.
When you sit in the city council meetings, you see the hired technical planning official give advice to the city council,
Yeah, and then they
only to
say,
have the city council ignore it.
yes,
Complete. Yeah, that is a common
Because
experience.
they have a predetermined opinion that they're already gonna go with, and they're gonna make their decision regardless of what the experts say.
And Aaron is offering a preview for episodes in your career paths, because architects tend to find themselves in planning and zoning commission hearings. And when things don't work out, architects find themselves in city council meetings, testifying, giving their 2 minutes, signing up and making their statement for 2 minutes, not coincidentally about the length of one paragraph of an analysis. See the connection there? We're preparing you for that moment of truth. And some of you will find yourselves as the members of the planning board or the higher technical staff of the planning official.
Actually, that helped me to move to our next topic, so thank you very much.
That's your only slide?
Yeah, the third one is the conclusion that you will have to finish after the class.
Yes.
Okay,
Okay,
thank
So-
you.
so we are talking today about a very important topic, is basically how planning is happening in government. So, and that helps me to
his.
announce again that next week we will meet in the city hall
Oh, yeah.
at Tuesday, June 30th, 30. We will meet in the Boston City Hall instead of class. So we will meet with the Boston City planners. And you are welcome. I hope that you come with this type of questions to them. So please, so you know what they tell to us? We are surprised that Wentworth is coming. We received the students from the ESD and Harvard and from MIT and never from all the university. We're happy that you're coming. I don't know where we're not going there anymore, than before, but now we are going. So you have to represent Wentworth very well. Be prepared and active, asking these questions to them, how they take decisions. I want to listen, for example, how that guy who worked as a planner with a Wentworth degree, if he's listened. I want to listen from Jason, if he feels that his ideas are really included or not. So be critical, respectful, but critical. That's the opportunity that we have. We will send an email, but we will meet in the southwest corner of the city hall on Tuesday, 10 a.m. We will meet there, southwest corner of the Boston City Hall of the building at 10 a.m. of next Tuesday. And from there, we'll walk up to the Boston City Hall.
What if I have class until 9:45, then I won't, I can't possibly be there until about 10:15, 10:20.
So does anyone are in that condition, in that issue, in that problem?
Yes, I have a solution. I think I'm just gonna leave my earlier class and wait a little bit earlier, so I can get to this class.
Don't leave your other class. It's up to us to Right, Aaron? We can't have these classes conflicting with each other. You gotta respect the earlier class. You stay to the end. Then you come as soon as you can to Boston City Hall, and I will come down and fetch you and bring you through security and bring you up to where we go. Okay?
But try your best to be at 10 a.m. because you will lose part of the important part. But we have to start at 10 a.m. because the trip is long,
Okay.
and there are many things to see there. If you have troubles to come on time, send us an email and we can find a different option.
And I'll give you my WhatsApp number and you can tell me when you've arrived and I'll come down and get you.
What's is in the same condition, the same situation. Have class.
You raise your hand if you have class till 9:45.
I don't see your hands, please.
Taylor? I don't.
1, 2, 3, 4, 4 people. Okay. So send us an email or stay later. We can find a plan B for you.
Right, okay. All right, so
And
capitalism,
Robert, body's in place. I don't know where.
bodies in place. Well, let's do that.
Okay.
So you will notice that every time on a Tuesday we meet in our individual groups, we have an analysis assignment that is due at 9 a.m. Well, this topic that we're presenting to you today, we're opening the week of capitalism and democracy. And this week is being extended into a stretch into 2 weeks. So this is the Thursday opening of the topic. The Tuesday when you present your analyses is a week from 2 weeks from today.
July 7th.
Go. July's, thank you. I'm a little befuddled. Today's Thursday.
Yeah.
So the Tuesday after 4th of July, that's when you need to have an analysis at 9 a.m.
Okay.
Okay, is that clear? But we like to keep you busy, as you know. We're 4-credit class, and the expectation is spending 8 hours a week outside of class time on this course. And we have a special assignment called Bodies in Place. And that is available to you on Brightspace. It's based on photography methods of Martin Romers, who lies about how he does it. Thankfully, our crack team of technicians here at Planetary Laboratories has cracked the code. He's not taking time-lapse photos. He's collapsing video footage using Photoshop. We want you to up your game. This is how bodies move through space. This is how bodies occupy space. This is how vehicles move through space. And it's a very special and powerful method for visualization that we don't have time to go over in detail. But we believe the assignment instructions are carefully enough written so that you, working with the instructions, here's a pro tip. Read the instructions carefully. And then the second pro tip, work with a colleague, because your colleague is going to understand, oh yeah, this is what they mean. So you can help each other make the most out of this assignment. If you read the instructions carefully and work with a colleague, you will spend less time doing this and get more out of it. And who doesn't love that? Raise your hand if you'd like to spend less time and get more out of it, as in get a better grade. So it's a very powerful method that we think you're going to appreciate. And so that is due next Tuesday at 9 a.m. And the analysis for this topic is due the week later, after the 4th of July weekend.
Yeah. So it's already in the syllabus, no change, and we're just writing this as a diagram to explain you the dates. So follow these rules, but it's the same thing that we have in the syllabus.
Okay.
Any doubt about this?
The direction. Really bright space. Bodies in place. It's the design. I think you're gonna like it. The submission is one photograph that you have produced out of video, put it in the slideshow, and submit it in Brightspace. How long does the video have space? We recommend about 30 seconds. You need maybe 100 frames to work with. It's an interesting assignment.
So I don't want to feel really long.
Okay. So this is not about capital cities. That's a different topic. Please don't make that mistake. Tell your friend that this is not about capital cities. This is about the operating system that we know as capitalism. And people want us to believe, well, we'll get into it as we get into the specifics. Let's start with what designers do and how design thinking works. This is familiar. As you move through this program into the graduate program, into your careers, you will become better and better at seeing in the built environment how specific physical arrangements, how formal spatial arrangements are connected with institutional arrangements, the operating systems, and the interplay between the built environment and the larger operating system, the rules of the operating system. And how that larger operating system is linked to cultural values. What do we as a society value most? And how that informs the rules of the operating system and how that informs our projects. But not just in that direction. What you should be catching on to as we move through here, we love when you choose projects for your Tuesday analysis that demonstrate a capacity for opening up new possibilities that people have not identified previously that have the potential to alter the rules of the operating system. Architects have the power to identify and imagine and create conditions that open up new possibilities for the operating system. And actually, on a good day, and sometimes it takes a century for a good day to work through the system, has an impact on shifting the values of our larger culture. And that is the goal, is for us to shift from being the good Germans, and I'll put that in context, just doing our job, obeying orders from above, and just paying off our student loans and paying off our car loans, to actually embracing our own agency to be the agents of change in the system. That's what we need. The world needs architects to embrace their potential to become agents of change and to empower those around them to change the system. It's not easy. So after World War II, those Nazis who were caught and put on trial testified that they were just following orders, that they were just being good Germans. And Eichmann's trial, he made the point, I'm an upstanding citizen, I go to church, I raised my family, I coached Little League, not literally, but this was the kind of testimony he was giving. And I did my job as an official of the German government. And Hannah Arendt, who is an important critical voice in at this time, wrote a very scathing book that came out of the Nuremberg trials, that she pointed out that evil in the world, sometimes it looks like a Bond villain stroking a cat on their lap. More and more evil looks like Elon Musk and that type of supervillain hiding out in the castle, right? So there are supervillains more today than ever before, stroking their cat and plotting evil against the planet. But throughout human history, the greatest evils, like the Holocaust, are perpetrated by otherwise nice people. They seem like nice people. And so she coined the term, the banality of evil. Evil doesn't express itself as, horns and a spiky tail. Evil looks like your neighbor's father who he coaches Little League, he has a good sense of humor, he goes to church, but he's the chairman of the board of a mining conglomerate responsible for devastation of the planet and thousands of premature deaths by mining. That's my story. One of my best friend's fathers was a mining magnate, very nice guy, by the way. So it's not the individual personalities that necessarily perpetrate evil. It's the normal everyday operation of the operating system. The rules, following the rules of the operating system results in negative things happening. And we need to look at that. Now, this is about design thinking. Design thinking is supposedly a new thing. And business schools around the world are saying, oh, the 20th century was all about technology. 21st century is all about design. And we should pay attention to that because architects have been doing this since the Renaissance. Instead of technology driving the important decisions in the 21st century, because the problems that we face are the result of siloed thinking, that siloed expertise solved each problem individually without seeing the impacts outside of the silo. To a large extent, climate change used to be considered a secondary impact of the main thing we were doing, an unintended consequence of the main thing we were doing, but now it is the big thing. So we've learned from the 20th century, with the greatest example being climate change, that we cannot afford siloed thinking. We need a holistic approach, just like what you're doing in Studio 6. You are experts to a certain extent in structural systems, mechanical systems, envelope systems, and design, all of the considerations of design. And the way you succeed as architects, the way you succeed in Studio 6 later today, is you demonstrate your capacity to bring in, specify technical systems, the structure, the envelope, the mechanical systems. And every time you give it technical specificity, your design is not compromised, your design gets amplified. That is what Wentworth does better than any other school, I believe. And it happens in Studio 6, and I can't wait to see your work this afternoon. Because this is the moment of truth in the Wentworth education, is how the design actually gets more powerful because you have such a command over the technical specialties. This power that we experience day in, day out in Studio 6 is what they're talking about in the design thinking transformation of the 21st century. Stanford University, their business school rebranded themselves in the 90s. They said, don't call us the B school, call us the D school, because our mantra is design thinking. And the number one step in design thinking is empathy. We as architects are obligated, ethically obligated, to do whatever we can to project ourselves into what it's like to be a user of our architecture. I'm a old white male. I need, as an architect, I need to project myself into the place of users that are not old white male. I need to imagine what it's like to be a 19-year-old college student walking on the Wentworth campus and knowing that, of course, I have pepper spray in my pocket. And what is it like to walk past CEIS and go past Tansy, and why my hand goes into my pocket to see if my pepper spray is there? I need access to that because I'm an architect. You all need access. You need to understand what it's like to be a little girl. You need to understand what it's like to be an old woman, an old man who's in a wheelchair. That is the job. The second thing, which seems to contradict the first thing, is we also are obligated to understand that no matter how hard we try, and try we must, when there's an actual user available to us, we need to stay curious. We need to ask the question, is this what it's like for you? What is it like for you? Ask the open-ended questions so we can become better designers because we have access to an understanding of what it's like to be that user. I love that photo. Questions about this? Empathy is the #1 skill. Okay, I'm gonna have to move forward. Now, we're gonna run into, you've already been running into this. Everybody thinks that capitalism is this thing that cannot be defeated. But as long as we have capitalism, we can't do anything positive. We can't solve the climate crisis. Look, Naomi Klein, she's a very smart woman. She says, you can either save the climate, you can either solve the climate crisis or you can keep capitalism. You cannot keep capitalism solving the climate crisis. Do not believe it. Do not fall for it. Capitalism is not a single thing. And I'm going to skip this video. Capitalism is when people say capitalism today, in reference to the current operating system, this is not small c capitalism. It is a very specific kind of capitalism. It should have a trademark because it's not capitalism per se. It's monopoly extractive capitalism. This is not what we have. The operating system of the world today is not normal capitalism. It is monopoly capitalism. It is extractive capitalism. It is finance capitalism. I think finance capitalism is probably the most useful terminology in this context, because finance continues to be the main distorting influence on small c capitalism. What is small c capitalism? Small c capitalism, for those of you who took economics in high school, or Wentworth has a very good economics course, right? So, yeah, the ingredients of small c capitalism is you need land, you need a labor force, you need capital investment in the form of factories, let's say it's Lowell, and that produces goods and services, and the price charged for those goods and services is greater than the price of the production. And so the difference between what it costs to produce and what you can ask in the market, supply and demand, that is the profit that mobilizes people to get out of bed in the morning and actually produce those goods and services. This is small c capitalism. It's pretty basic and it's pretty universal. It's not tempting to move away from this. This is actually pretty solid. What goes wrong is when you have a monopoly, this instead of being 90% of the value of what this can be sold for, when this becomes disconnected from the total price, that is finance capitalism. For example, how much does it cost Wentworth to produce a dorm room? How much does Wentworth charge for a dorm room?
$7,000.
$7,000 per semester?
It all depends on what building you're in.
More or less, right? What do you think Wentworth has paid? What are the costs associated with Wentworth's that allows them to charge $7,000? Some of us might be generous and say, oh, Wentworth must cost Wentworth $7,000 to make that dorm room available to us. And they're just trying to house their students, right? Well, we had a wake-up call during the pandemic when classes went online and students did not pay for housing on campus because of financial crisis. It turns out that a big part of the finances of Wentworth come from the rental of housing. So Wentworth produces the housing for a limited cost and its maintenance, but it charges the market rate. Whatever the market rate for Boston is, Wentworth charges that to help pay for all the vice presidents. Yes, sir.
Wentworth doesn't pay taxes, right?
Correct.
Okay, that was my question, because that's like one of the.
Yeah, it's one of the costs. But they charge less to the students because they don't pay taxes. They charge more or less what it would cost to rent an apartment. It's a huge moneymaker. Yes.
It definitely costs a lot more to live on.
Oh, it costs more to live on campus.
Yeah.
Okay. So adjust it as necessary. So the cost of, so this is an example of the cost to consumers, to end users, is disconnected from the cost of production. And that is typically the situation in monopoly capitalism. How much do you pay for your cell phone? Way more. How many people have had a cell phone in other countries? How much does it cost for a cell phone in these other countries?
10%.
It's like 10% of what it costs in the United States. Why is that? It's because of monopoly capitalism. The concentration of suppliers to a very few number of suppliers allows them to collaborate with or without formal arrangements. They play golf together. They never talk about the prices they charge, but they're buddies, and friends don't let friends, not make a huge profit. So because there are so few suppliers of cell phone service in the United States, they're allowed to charge significantly more than the costs to produce that. And the healthcare system. Why is the United States one of the worst healthcare systems in the world in terms of outcomes, but by far the most expensive? Same thing. Yeah. So the problem isn't capitalism, is what I'm saying. Here's the point. Capitalism is like the programming language. And then what you do, the operating system that you produce out of that language is a different thing. So the specific kind of capitalism that is causing climate change, even though we know better, is monopoly, finance, extractive capitalism. Questions about that? I had a device. I had a clicker. So when we look back in history, we saw all this. When the Europeans left Europe in Columbus and the Portuguese, the two powerful kingdoms, the two powerful Catholic kingdoms that set out across the oceans to conquer the world were the King of Portugal and the King of Spain, the Catholic kings of Europe. And they started to conflict with each other, so the Pope stepped in and said, listen, let's just divide the world in half. And the Pope helped them draw a line here. That's why we speak Portuguese in Brazil, but Spanish in the rest of South America. And then when we discovered that the world was round, they met again a few decades later, and they extended that line right around the planet. And that's why in Timor, we speak Portuguese still today. And in the Philippines, we speak Spanish. Isn't that crazy? So this is the Catholic kingdoms splitting the world in two, dividing the world. And what was this world for? It was for two things. It was for Christian souls, because the Bible tells us we are obligated to spread the good news of Jesus and give everyone a chance at salvation. And so we were after souls because we're obligated as Catholics to do that. But also, we wanted to make proper use of the natural resources of the planet, especially gold and silver, because God meant for us to have dominion over all things of the planet and make the most and highest, best use of all those resources. So It was about souls, winning over new Christian souls, and extracting wealth. And we did it really well. We, the Europeans, did it really well. Our operating system included all these ships and everything. But this was a monarchy, a monarchical system, a royal system of extractive capitalism. The English and the Dutch changed the operating system. Oh, that's interesting. And the Spaniards used grid as an architectural mechanism for rapidly expanding their conquest of resources. So the grid, this is an important question of the architectural mechanisms. We don't have time. Let's talk about that next week. So you remember all these slides from history too. Remember 1924? You have notes, I'm sure you have notes. So the monarchy system was limited by how much wealth the kings of the Iberian Peninsula were able to gather together to send the expeditions off to, especially to get silver from South America. This was the huge source of wealth. But there was only so much the two kingdoms could do. The Dutch and the English found a new operating system that released 10 times or more wealth than the monarchy system could do. That new system was finance capitalism. And we learned about this in the spring of 2024 when we looked at Amsterdam and Batavia and all of these architectural systems of the market, the merchant's bank, and the weigh house. The architecture was to produce trust, that you can trust me, that your money is safe. You give me your money and I will return on your investment. This architecture of trust was so successful that people started to trust each other. That opened up the opportunity to sell shares so that pieces of paper now became the tokens of wealth. As soon as you trust that the person holding this piece of paper is doing a certain amount of actual wealth, as soon as you open up that possibility, you can now trade on the open market those shares. And so this was the first multinational corporation. The Dutch East India Company was the first multinational corporation. They had an army, they had a navy, they had governmental power, and they released, between the Netherlands and the English, these mechanisms that were made possible by the architectures of trust that we studied in 2024, made it possible to control the movement of goods and services halfway around the world. And the city of Amsterdam is a city of finance capitalism. The house form of the canal houses that you will visit in Amsterdam, and you will, because architects love Amsterdam. The family, and you remember you did an analysis of this. The family occupies this space of the house. This is their shop/factory where they process goods and sell them out the front of their house. And this is the storage warehouse of every family household. And so they could buy lumber or spices or whatever. They could buy it cheap, store it here, and when the price goes up, they quickly move it out the windows, down the hoistway to wagons or to the canal, to a boat in the canal. They move it to the market and they sell it while the price is still high. So the architecture, and that's why there are canals in Amsterdam. So the architecture and the urban form of Amsterdam is the direct machinery, the instrumentation of finance capitalism. If we fast forward to the Solus reading, who did the Solus reading on investment capitalism? The cyborg, the zombie. So if we fast forward to that, that is the new manifestation of finance capitalism. How does architecture produce and provide the infrastructure for the operation of finance capitalism? The Solus reading is the answer to that. And it's a very interesting thing. In my neighborhood in Cambridge, there's a house, it's a historic house. Someone bought it. They moved it to a new part of the site. They dug a 5-story basement and they put in all kinds of facilities down there, and then they moved the house back over it. And no one seems to live there.
Is this the Harvard, near the Harvard University?
Well, everything is near Harvard. It's near the observatory. It's on Raymond Street.
I know which one you're talking about.
It's down going up the hill on Raymond.
Yep, yeah, now I know.
And you're going up that hill.
Yeah.
See it right there. Okay.
Now, I was like, because I've been in that general area many times.
Yeah. So now, what is finance capitalism? What does it look like in the industrial era? Like, let's say in Lowell. So the factory system is another manifestation of finance capitalism. We're going to look at, and the primary element that matters in the Industrial Revolution is labor. And so you will recall that the commons, farmers were allowed to graze their livestock on commonly shared land. And this relates to the community land trust idea that we talked about earlier in the semester. But then private owners decided, or the government of the king of the parliament of England said, too many commons, we need private ownership of the commons. So the laws of enclosure over the course of 300 years, we got rid of the commonly held lands. So all of a sudden, the people who used to farm land that they didn't own and take the produce and graze livestock on land that was commonly held and benefited from that, they lost access to all of those benefits. They either were driven off the land and into cities, so pushed off of land and into cities, which is never a good thing. You want to be pulled, not pushed. Remember that? So all of a sudden they flocked to cities. They were pushed into cities where there wasn't enough housing and not enough jobs. And so it created this huge pool of labor that was available to work in the factories of these factory towns. Then who read the Engels reading? So the Engels reading is all about the low quality of housing by young Friedrich Engels, discovered by young Friedrich Engels, not much older than you. His father said, son, it's time for you to take over the family factory business. Please come to Manchester and help me run my factories. So young Friedrich came, and he was expected to take over for his father, running all these factories, living in a beautiful house up on the hill. But young Friedrich was a free thinker, and he started to go for walks around Manchester, and he dared to peek in what's going on behind these shops on the main streets. And when he went down these alleys, he discovered these horrible living conditions that he describes in great depth. What he's doing there is basically the verbal, textual part of the analysis project. He is looking at the architectural outcomes of many, many decisions, and he's writing statements because of this form, it's producing this user experience. So Engels is really a pioneer of this analysis method. It's just he didn't draw much. So later, Charles Booth drew these maps that showed the thin crust of fancy shops with homes above the shops. And behind that thin crust of shops were these horrible slum conditions where people were various stages of starving to death or barely making it holding it together. Because there was so much labor, there was so much oversupply of labor that the factory owners could afford to pay very, very little. Which brings us to Lowell. The factory buildings that you were transforming was the site of a bold experiment by the factory owners of Lowell, who said, what if we did something that was less harmful? They're still capitalists. They're still making a fortune in the manufacturing of their textiles, but they were not comfortable with the negative impacts of their factory operations. And the labor force tended to be children and women, and especially young women. And so the factory owners set up this ideal situation where typically when you bring young women into the city, it's a recipe for social and moral decay. They become prostitutes because they can make more money. But because we are good Christians, we're not comfortable with that. And so we set up social programs and educational advancements. We improve the living conditions. We improve the working conditions. We improve the working hours. We make sure the young women are getting a proper Christian education. Look, and this is a posed photo to demonstrate how well off these young women are. They are going to make very good wives and mothers when they're done with their time of labor in the factories. This was the new operating system that was not outside of capitalism. It was embedded in capitalism by capitalists, or you could achieve the same thing through government intervention by establishing rules for limiting the working hours and ensuring the housing conditions and educational opportunities for the workers. So the operation of markets, there's a mythology that we're pushing it back against here. There's a mythology is that you can either have government regulation or you can have free market capitalism. Do not fall for this trick. There is no such thing as a market without the rules and the laws of governments to establish the free operation of those markets. In the absence of market rules established by governments, what we have is the wild, wild west. Whoever has the biggest gun and can shoot the fastest gets the richest. And right now, we have kind of a hybrid system where whoever can pollute the most and extract the most wealth out of the ground fastest, they get the most money. And governments are trying to regulate that and put some order on it to reduce the negative impacts of this cowboy capitalism. But there's an ideological battle, and the governments are losing right now. Governments in most places, especially the United States, are being squashed and shrunk down so that they cannot mobilize market operating systems to produce beneficial outcomes. Why is it that we've understood since forever that climate change happens when you pollute too much? And yet, we've known it since 1961, Rachel Carson's Sound and Spring, but it's 65 years ago. We still are polluting more every year than the last year. What's up with that? Well, it's not because we don't know better. It's because the governments are not able to keep up with the guardrails and the laws to ensure positive outcomes from the natural operation of markets. So fast forward, housing reform. These are the things that I want you to look at for Tuesday. There's this idea of the missing middle of housing. The operating system of housing production in the United States right now. Where did I put the clicker? Here it is. If you're a developer and you're going to have clients who started out wanting to produce affordable housing for themselves and others who couldn't afford these single family houses, but they are forced by the zoning rules and the banking policies. They realize that the only way they can stay in business is to produce more luxury single-family housing. So producing more housing is not necessarily the goal. Producing more small housing appropriate to the average household size of between 1 and 2. And so smaller units in the middle, this is the missing middle that the operating system of the United States has proven incapable of producing. Yes, sir.
So I want to connect it with a discussion that we had in the seminar. So two students of my class, Isaac and Jay, came with the same image of an idea for the missing middle housing in Denmark. And there was a consensus in my students in that class that we need backyard in
Okay,
order to succeed. So we need a backyard because that is
yeah,
a symbol of status, but also a symbol of having my kids
right.
like
Touch the
safe,
ground
touch the ground
and a
safe.
dog.
So what when the big issue that we see in the middle, and I want to ask you is that we don't have a backyard.
Well,
How do we
that's
deal with that?
That's a design challenge. Yes, Aaron.
So when you said like household sizes, so you said like single family houses, like you could say, but I feel like houses are bigger than they need to be. Like a 4-bedroom house only has 2 people living in it.
Or what?
So like I feel like or 1 person. So I think like even just smaller lot sizes is something that you could that I talked about in my co-op. So that's also a thing. So
Well, the operating system is conspiring to go in the opposite direction still. In the 101 towns and cities that make up Boston, Metro Boston, their biggest problem is the cost of educating students. So city councils throughout the United States, because schools uniquely, nowhere else in the world is this true, but towns and cities charge property taxes, and that property tax income funds the schools. So if the city councilors throughout the United States could make a law, you can purchase property, you can rent property in our town as long as you do not have any children or there's no fertile woman in your household. They would pass that law in a second because the cost of educating children is crushing us. So we have to ban women who might give birth, but that's illegal. So we don't do that. So instead, we do the next best thing. We say if it's 4 units per acre, we change it to 1 unit per acre. If it's 1 acre per dwelling, we make it 5 acres. If it's 5 acres, we make it 20 acres. We reduce the amount of housing and we increase the size of the house. At least we get fewer children to educate in our school system. Listen, I'm just being a good German. Don't call me a Nazi. I'm just trying to survive financially. This is the normal operating system of how the finance of education goes. Aaron.
So I think in my experience, I remember like city council people or people are making arguments about how, say, a new housing project adding 20, 30, 40 units, they want to take into account the amount of school children that it'll produce. But isn't that like unconstitutional or something? I'm pretty sure that was what.
You can ask the question, but you cannot ban. It's illegal to ask a real estate agent if it's not. They're not allowed to ask about your children. How many children you have or how many children you're planning on.
So I guess they just can't use that as a reason to deny a project.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
That would be a Nazi move.
Okay.
And in this context, Nazis are bad. I think we have to say that now, not like before. We have to point out that the assumption is Nazis are bad. So Massachusetts is leading the charge. They say, hey, if your town doesn't have at least 10% of its housing stock affordable, then all your zoning restrictions are set aside and a developer can build anything they want in your town to produce affordable housing. Wow. That's why when you go out Route 2, do you ever go out Route 2? You're turning the corner at Concord. all that housing up on the hill to the left, as you're leaving Boston, that was produced by the town of Lincoln to provide the minimum affordable housing so that it wouldn't be thrust upon them when developers did it. These rules are not quite working, and so we keep adding new ones. Smart growth, smart energy, and close to transportation. But just the most important one now is the newest one. Well, this building type is suddenly taking over, and you see it all over Boston. This is either parking or retail below with housing above. It's usually a steel or concrete podium with wood framing above. It's a new building type that is recently legal, but it is producing high density housing all over Boston. But the main thing that I want to end with is the 2021 MBTA Communities Law, because this doesn't just allow density wherever. It produces density, because remember the car thing? Don't forget the car thing, right? We have a car problem, we have automobile dependency, and we need to solve that problem at the same time as we solve the housing problem. This is the ambition of this rule, that if you have a commuter rail station in your town, or the extension of the Orange Line, which is Green Line, within a half mile of the station, you are required to build 15 or more units per acre adjacent, within a half mile of the train station. So this is transit-oriented development. It is building density where it is least likely to increase traffic congestion, because it's transit-oriented development.
I have another question.
Yes.
So that was the Massachusetts state law that trumps municipal laws, basically, is that what you're saying? Or that law that made, that you guys
Yes.
for the zoning requirements?
All towns are required to comply with this standard.
For low income housing or for,
It has to be low income, high density, near transit.
and TOD, okay, all of it.
Yeah,
Thanks.
it's a package.
Just questions.
So I've run over. Sorry.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so guys, I want to propose something. I haven't talked with that with Robert. So we are talking today about capital and how capital affects how capital shapes cities. And we were moving towards democracy. That will be a topic that we've reached since this week, week 4 and week 3. And then after that, Robert will join to discuss the grid, which is basically the main tool that the system used or have used in the history of civilization to shape cities. So, and in democracy, I will be jumping from democracy, spatial democracy, and ecosystemic democracy. So, which means that this topic will be continuing next week. When I say next week, it's after the Independence Day. But I want you to be aware about this scheme. So next time, I propose that I start.
Okay.
So then I can follow out this topic, and then you finish with the grid as a demonstration of how that democracy rules and capitalist rules apply in the main tool of design that we have. So this will be the scheme that we will be following the coming weeks. Okay. So in democracy, I have only one big question. So talking about this topic is, who decides when we design cities or when we design policies in cities? So again, in order to simplify, I will put 2 options. Option 1 is people who knows about the topic. We were talking about technocrats. And an option 2 is people who will use the thing that you are designing. So you have 2 options. So you obviously there is always something in the middle, huh? But for now, I will have this debate between the people who knows and the people who will be using the space. And the question here is who should take the main decisions of our project? Should we do a survey here or not? Yeah, let's do a survey. If you believe that when you are a designer, you need to have the decisions of your design, If you have a degree from Wentworth and you know some of the topic, raise your hand, please. You take the design decisions. One, Oliver. Yeah, Peter is here. One, two, okay. Okay, raise your hand if you're a priest. You rather believe that it's not you, it's the users, your client, who should make the decisions. Raise your hand. You also raise your hand twice. Yeah. You're tricky me. Okay, some of you. So this debate is always there. Okay, I just want to at least see the vibe of the team. And for me, that is the main question about when we talk about democracy applied to the spaces, especially if we understand that democracy is something that is also spatial, it's something that also happened in the space. And the reason because I want to highlight that is because you will be working in your projects in the future, and you will find people who believe that you are secondary in the line of changing the lives of people. And we're within there. So if you talk with sociologists, politicians, psychologists, policymakers, they believe that they set the rules of the system, and the rules are socioeconomic, and the space is something that comes later, and it's something that you basically apply whatever happened in the socioeconomic system. What we are trying to do, and this is probably the main message of this class, is that it's not that there are some rules in the culture that we apply as a project in the project. It's also the project and the way we design a space also affects the rules and also affect the system. So you have what we're trying to propose here. You have an agency in the way you design in order to promote or not democracy, and this is what we call a spatial democracy. It's a democracy that happens in the space. It's not something that happens in the rules, in the system we create, the socioeconomic system. It's not only something that happens in the laws, it also happens in the space, and there are several evidence that demonstrate that. So, and this is just a key for your analysis. If you are lost in your analysis, listen to me. You go to the slide, this is hidden, but this number of the slide, and you can find these examples. You can click these sources, and you will find data to understand how the city is affected by democracy. For the good, for example, for how the city is a tool to create street protest or street celebration. Actually, what is in place is could be an exercise of democracy. What is in place is an exercise. I'm really happy that it's happening this time. It's a tool that you can see how people really use the space, because they want to. Actually, we recommend you that you speak at a space that is really active. Probably because people are celebrating because of the World Cup, for example. And you can analyze through these analysis how people use that space. But also, you can see with border militarization, with structural inequality. Robert was talking last week how the infrastructure, the highways were built in the place of the red line. You remember that? That is a consequence of spatial democracy. How the space is a reflection of black democracy and how it's clearly. Or you have fortified urbanism. That is an example in Florida, where you fortify the areas and have gated communities. That is a reflection and idea of how democracy happens in the space.
But we would prefer positive examples.
But yeah, we prefer positive examples. You're right. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. But my main point here is that democracy is failing. That is a fact. Across the world, democracy is failing. We don't believe anymore in democracy. So, do you believe in democracy? Many people say that we don't.
I don't.
You don't? Why?
I really don't, because it's hard to explain. I mean, I've heard way too much democracy lately. It's like I got one of my family members that talks about it all the time, and I try to escape it.
Yeah. And this is a general vibe. Thank you for saying that, Simon. It's a general vibe. And this is a report for the Pew Research Center that they say that actually we have to put a name. Similar than capitalism, that there are many types of capitalism, there are many types of democracies. What is failing, or what is we're perceived as a failure, is what we call representative democracy. Is this model where democracy and decisions are made by a group of people that we select to represent us, and we have a feeling that it's failing because of many things. One of them is what Taylor said at the beginning of the class. that these people are ruled by not by the electors, but by different lobbyists. But in general, we believe that they are not represented enough, and these are basically a report that says that you can read that. So representative democracy is now the most. So they have representative democracy, diverse democracies, ruled experts, ruled by a strong leader, and ruled by militaries. But what is remarkable of this report is that across the years, people believe, and this is, and you see this little graphics, people are losing the trust in democracy, and where many people believing that one strong leader can solve our problems to make our countries great again. This is what the general vibe. We're selecting strong leaders that can solve our problems because the system is failing. And again, this is happening here and this is happening everywhere. And this report demonstrates that it's happening. So in consequence, what Stephen Levitsky says that democracy is dying. And he have this whole book explaining why this is happening. Where stop believing that this system can help us to have better environments. And you can see that basically it says that frequently people start losing trust in democracy and having more trust in strong leaders that can solve our problem. So in order to others, and the problem here is that supposedly democracy is a tool for us to negotiate our conflicts, to negotiate how we solve conflict and how we solve issues. So this is a graphic that I really like by Moises Naim. He had a research for 60 years in many systems, and he demonstrated research in many years that when you have lot of people, where you distribute the power in few people, you have lower level of inclusion and socioeconomic stability. But if when you distribute the power in only one people, you have low levels of inclusion and socioeconomic. So if power is distributed in one person, there is no inclusion. But and there is no stability. But if power is distributed with everybody, you have low stability and also low socioeconomic inclusion. So what he says that is something in the middle in certain regimes where you have a balance between distribution of power, that you share power between the many and the few, where you can have certain level of socioeconomic activities. But let me stop and say, because the problem here is at the end is a scale. Who said that 1 week ago? I remember some of you, I think what you had. Yeah. So you say that 1 week ago. When we were talking about participation, some of you say that the big issue of participation is the scale. So you know that democracy began with participation. So the beginning of democracy happened in Pericles, Athens, 1461 before Jesus Christ, before current era, and basically all democracies were participatory. So actually the beginning of the concept of democracy is that you will meet in one space, in this case, the Agora, the main public space of Athens and all Greek cities, and we share decisions between all, and we decide, we discuss, we say, okay, randomly come to this place, discuss, and we take decisions for everybody. So the beginning of the word democracy is basically participation. It was not representative democracy, it was participatory democracy. However, there were solutions. So I want you to be critical of that image. Tell me what the main issue that you see in this democratic model. What do you see there? What is missing in order to be really democratic?
It's not representative of the whole population constituents.
It's not representative of everybody.
Just people with beards. What about clean-shaven white men property owners?
Yeah. Yeah, if you don't have a beard, yeah, that's the reason because we are included. Yeah. So who is missing here? Who is missing? Women. Yeah. Who else? You don't see that clearly, but you're missing slaves.
The enslaved.
Yeah. Yeah. What else? People who have no property. So in the original system, you have to be white and you have to be part. let me rephrase that again. It's not white. You have to be part of the dominant caste of the dominant people in order to be included. And this is what participatory means. So it was participatory democracy, but not for everybody. There is a second issue here. That is not that evident. I already said that. It's a skill. Can you imagine what is the issue with this model of democracy? When that guy organized everybody, raise your hand, and you have any opinion, you take decisions, yeah?
Well, I don't know, is it literally just showing how the whole thing is overbearing over the people? Like just in an illustration, I guess?
Yeah, I know, and the illustration also said, yes, that's true. You always have the power seeing you. That's true.
It's
Yeah.
a good analysis.
It's a good analysis. It's a good, very good analysis. So, and the other thing is skill. And I want to translate that to your projects. Imagine that you want to really do a participatory meetings in your project. You can have I don't know, a town hall and meet 20 people, 50 people, 100, 200. There is a moment where you cannot gather that amount of people, and at the end, you are having more people involved, or that is your client, than the people that you can consult or you can discuss. Participation have the issues of skill. It's very difficult in participatory meetings to include every single client that will be influenced by your project. Remember, when I say a client, your client is not only the people who pay you. It's everybody who will be in some ways affected by the project. So, and that's the reason, because I have to say that between this slide and this slide happened a lot of things, a lot of monarchy, a lot of lack of democracy. I just keep it that history of feudalism, and then we jump to the second phase of democracy that was called representative democracy. Again, participatory democracy, little scales, really direct, and representative democracy. And actually, these guys, because Hamilton, Madison, and Jay, the founding fathers, they wrote this report, this journal called The Federalist, and they created this model. For me, they were kind of genius. So representative democracy, they said, if we cannot take decisions, because this is 13 colonies, they are so big, and we're planning to expand everywhere, so we cannot use participatory democracy. Let's create a representative democracy. I'm sorry, I'm oversimplifying this story, but we don't have that one. Yeah. So, but basically, they decided to, in order to increase the scale, we have our representatives that they take decisions from. And this is what is democracy in America, the ones that exist today. The question that I have here is how we have a mediation, how we have find a way that have the benefit of both cases. Representative democracy works better to deal with big problems in a highly populated, urbanized planet, but at the same time, it's missing our connection with the problem because representatives are not working with us. And both participatory democracy is good for that connection, but it's have the issue of scale. The question here, and it's an open question, I don't have the answer, is how we can have the benefit of both systems, because at the end, democracy is failing. People are not believing in this anymore. We know that we cannot have participatory democracy or representative democracy is not working. So in order, Peter.
Like, I think the balance between participatory versus representative democracy should be that you only, like, let's say there's a designer, that person's knowledge should be included, but only to the extent that they actively live in that area or actively exist in that area. So I don't think let's say you're a designer in one part of the city and you're making decisions in a different area. You should then the area between where you live and where you're making decisions, that space should be acknowledged, because I think that space is
what he suggested. Thank you, Peter. It's something that he proposed in his book. Did you read this book? Okay, you have to. So let me explain that.
The reading was from her.
One reading, exactly. One of the reading about climate change in the era of open democracy is from her.
And using the lottery to choose representatives.
Yeah. So basically, because of, I'm gonna come back to that. Okay. So in order to address the failure of democracy, I can summarize two trends that is happening now in sport. One trend, I decided that is represented by Jason Brenner, and he has that book called Against Democracy. Say, democracy is not working because representatives, they don't really represent people, one, and they don't really know about anything. So what he proposed is something that is called epistocracy, similar to technocracy. You have we don't select people anymore. We leave people who really knows about the topic to take decisions. Yeah, now it's impossible that thing will fail. Huh? Are you following me, guys? So you pick the guys who really knows, and they decide for us. This is this side of the cycle. The other one is Hélène Landemore. She called that open democracy. Actually, the current version of Hélène Landemore, she said that we have to use AI as a way to increase open democracy, and then you use technology, as Peter is saying, to decide that you have a random selection of people, but also this randomness is also, you have certain points depending on your capacity and depending on your location. And that level creates a lottery, but it's not equal. You have a lottery that choose people who will have a meeting of a group of people who will take decisions. So I'm going to give you an example. Imagine that Dante, he's an expert in climate change and envelope design. And Dante also lives in Boston area. So if the decision has to be made in this area, you have 4 points. In my case, because I'm not an expert, I have 2 points. And then that lottery has certain level of change that is really complex, but we can do that today because we have the technology to decide teams of people who gather to take that decision in a more open way. And she's proposing to, actually, she's being really radical. Hélène Landemore is a professor from Princeton University. She's being really radical. She's proposing to eliminate our current voting system and go that way. So my point is, I don't know, obviously we don't know if we're going there, but I want to be aware that there are many scholars deciding at the level of the government how we can change the system in order to make that more useful for people. Any reaction, please?
I don't know, this is just like my opinion, like, again, sitting at the city council meetings, there's the board of all these people sitting here, the experts are the ones that don't have power, and I just like, I sat there, I thought they had a vote, and I'm like, the city planner doesn't even get a vote at the end, and I thought that it just doesn't make sense, and I think there could be both people getting.
What she's proposing is for certain topics, not only that they have a vote, they vote sometimes it counts more than others, and that you have this balance that change depending on. But again, for me, it's important to discuss democracy, especially for discuss how you manage your project and how you make your project more democratic, more inclusive, because sometimes we understand that people have to be heard, but sometimes we also have to be also the technical needs of the architects and other professionals have to be heard. So against democracy, actually, should I go there? No, we can skip this. Yeah, and also similar to the epistocracy, there is one trend, and this is basically led by one guy called Curtin Yarvin. You know who's Curtis Yarvin? Okay, it's a big advisor of our current federal government. Okay, he basically say that why we have to manage governments in a traditional way if companies in capitalist system are working well. So he proposed a CEO style government. Instead of having a president, you have a CEO. Yeah, do you have any opinion about that?
No.
So because that will be more efficient or hierarchical, and then the private have more things to do. What is the big issue with this? The big thumbs up is efficiency. Let's say that is true. What is the big issue with this type of government that is happening everywhere, including this country? Yeah.
Voice.
You lose your voice. Yeah. But if you I don't know, I have an iPhone, and the CEO of iPhone, he decides for me. I don't want what I need is these things to work. But I need a voice to manage this item. Same with government. Why I need a voice? So you follow me there thinking? If iPhones are working well for me, and it's managed by the CEO that understand the efficiency of the company, why I need to be heard? I just need the iPhone. Same thing with government and all the policies. Why I have to be heard? Jay.
If that implies it's ran like a business, so it's ran for profit. And that way, even if they're delivering an efficient product, it's not giving everybody.
I love that you are connecting with Robert's lectures. Like we're paying attention. Yes. So because sometimes they are thinking in the big C, the small C capitalism, and you can make the connections. What else? Why do you think why we have to be heard? Why is an issue that one group of people decide everything for us? Yeah, Peter.
I think like to go off of like the iPhone example, like maybe it's efficient for one person to make all the decisions and it's like all good. But if every iPhone was independently different and had its own experiences and a conscience, then I don't think that would necessarily be the best way to run that company.
Yeah, he talked about diversity in some ways. Yeah. Yeah, please. You raise your hand? No. So I'm gonna give you another example with my iPhone. We talk about that a lot. You know that this has voice recognitions. So you can instead of sending a message, I speak and they translate that into a words, and then you speed up the way you communicate with others. Robert's an expert. Use that a lot. Do you know why I cannot use it? Because of my accent. This is trained to listen to Robert's accent, not mine. We both have accents.
Right.
But this is trained by the CEO of Apple to listen to his accent, not mine. So he can use that tool, I cannot. So help me to connect the dots. Why sometimes it's not working to have a CEO style government? Why this sometimes not working to hear the voice of people, in addition to the profit issue? Yeah. That is the benefit. That is efficient. What's the problem? What is the issue? That you have one group of people deciding for everybody.
What's the downside?
What is the downside? Yeah. Yeah.
Whoever the CEO is, like, they're designing for themselves and like what they like just said with Robert, like CEO would design for his voice to be heard, not other people's voices.
Yes. And we call that bias. So it's basically the issue that and this is normal, okay? What I have to say here, that bias are normal. It's completely normal that, for example, I'm going to give you another example. I go to a studio, and in Latin America, if you do not interrupt the other one, you're doing bad. So I interrupt my classmates, my friends. I have a meeting here, and I have a review with John Ellis, and I start talking, and I interrupt him, because this is the good way to do it. Here is bad behavior. For me, it's difficult to say that it's bad behavior. You have to learn that I have to listen to him first before that talking. So it's normal to have bias because we have our way. So our way of thinking that we learned since we were kids. It's normal that when I go to a place, I cannot recognize what is good for others. That is normal. The problem is that we don't understand and we don't have the empathy to understand that others can have the rules. The big problem with this one, sorry if I'm staying here a lot, but I think this is very important. The main issue of the CEO style government, the way that you have experts that dominate, that take the decisions, is that people can pretend being to do the good for everybody, but they have the bias and they cannot recognize whether it's good for not only for them or for everybody. Are you getting that?
But just to dramatize it, the closer we get to the damage of climate change, the greater the incentive for me as a trillionaire is to maximize my own wealth and those of my closest friends so we can escape to Mars and leave the other 10.5 billion people on this dead planet. So the incentive structure is distorted. I'm corrupted by my own self-interest. Give me the power, I will misuse it for my own benefit.
On the other side, trying to understand how to address the issues of representative democracy side is often democracy, and I don't want to go there because you read that thing, is understand that, for example, climate is not only technical. That's the main point of this reading.
Yeah.
Climate is not only technical, it's political, it's cultural, it's social. All of that should be included if you understand how to address climate. So only technicians that are really experts in climate solutions is not enough, because people have certain survival knowledge that should be or can be included. And that comes with probably the main theory behind that, and this is Jürgen Habermas, this guy. Jürgen Habermas is part of the School of Frankfurt. He explained that at the end, we have different needs, different knowledge. And if we understand all of them, projects and also governments will be better managed. So he said that sometimes you have technical interest. This could be the architect. We have an interest. We have a need. We need this project to be safe. We need this project to be solid. We need this project to be environmentally controlled. We need this project to be beautiful. That is a need that we have, and now they are really important, guys. So, but he said that it's also some practical interest, sometimes led by governments, like people needs to have access, people needs to be also safe, people needs to be understood, people needs to be listened, and there is also some emancipatory interest by the people. And they want to have more power, they want to be more listened, they want to be more included. Even if they have no idea about how to do a project, it's a need for them to be included because of power imbalance, just for them to feel included. Actually, if you do a great project and that project includes people, it will be a better project because they will feel that these projects also belong to them. So what Jürgen Habermas say is that you have to include all of these interests in order to have a freedom, equality, to create a theory of communicative action. So you communicate between these needs to create a product. So probably, and this is probably the main message before I stop. So it's not a challenge between the technical interest or this idea that the technicians have the reason and they have the knowledge, or it's not the issue that we give the we give the power of the people of the people, and we understand that there is a survival knowledge. Probably the solution, and this is his proposal, is a combination between both knowledge. How you combine the knowledge of the technicians, the knowledge of the architects, and the knowledge of the people, and create a new knowledge which is a combination of both. And I will come back to that again next week when I talk about the combination with the normative needs and survival needs. I'm gonna stop here for now because I want to give you the 5 last minutes to our what's the point is. Come back here again.
Yeah.
Probably I will have to put the Google Maps. We can do it. And to showing the map where.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. You know what is your job, am I right? So your job is to summarize if you believe in some way we address the main question that we had at the beginning, or what is missing. And second is to give for some ideas about for the analysis.
So I guess my opinion is like, in order for us, like for democracy to still like be, like I think we still have democracy as a community, but it's obviously like not perfect because we have to be able to protect and participate in our opinion and be able to like kind of, I don't know, just be able to back it up so our opinion can matter and go against people that have a lot of influence like on their money in the community. So that's my opinion.
I think the lecture, which is like kind of the topic we were talking about earlier, was like who has to, who's like more in charge. It's like that going back to the photo kind of showed like we're like gradually going from a point where it's like very select groups that live in charge, and now we're becoming like more open and like there's more interaction with who has the same goals.
My answer to this simple question is kind of the same thing after the lecture. I think the government and investors will run or shape the way society is today. They just always want to have power citizens and architects.
I definitely think, well, you guys answered most of it, but there's still like a question of how, if power is held in like the hands of few, how are you meant to break the system to let power be held with more just like normal citizens and those that are using the space? But I would say my answer to that would be that people need to be more informed and knowledgeable, and like the citizens that are utilizing what is being built need to have the knowledge that an expert would have for their opinion to be like fully realized and appreciated by everybody else.
There's an ironic item in the news yesterday afternoon. Congress attempted to pass a law that would increase the housing supply by making new rules in the operating system of the government that would reduce, not just in Massachusetts, but basically taking the same approach that Massachusetts has been taking and take that approach throughout the entire country. And Congress, both Republicans and Democrats and independents, everybody agrees that we need to change the rules so that local zoning codes stop operating against low-cost housing, and that lifting local zoning rule controls to allow more middle housing to be produced. And Congress is ready to pass it.
Can I just elaborate on that, please?
You want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, the president did not want to sign it.
Well, no, that's the thing. It's being blocked by the president of the United States.
It doesn't give a care about anything.
No, it's more specific than that. He really, really, really wants to reduce how many people participate in elections. And so he has promoted this new law called the SAVE Act that would purge from the voter rolls about 14% of voters to reduce the number of people who are allowed to vote. And he refuses to allow the housing rules to be passed until we pass the rules that would reduce the number of voters in the United States. So this is the issues of housing, the operating system that produces the housing situation that we have is on the verge of being improved, but we can't because there are other forces conspiring to reduce the democratic operations of government. So these issues are not theoretical, abstract. These are real life on the ground being hashed out day in, day out in the real world that you are graduating into.
I'm sorry if I said anything bad about it. It's just.
No, don't apologize. This is the discussion. So in that context, what we hope for a week from Tuesday, that you bring to us specific examples, positive examples of housing that represents the needs of people, hopefully produced in response to those needs, hopefully produced in response to people voicing their needs, the kinds of housing developments and pieces of urban fabric that are produced to serve the needs of actual people, not finance capitalism and not reducing the voices of the people, but expanding the voices of people. Because housing, transit, democratic measures, affordability, all of these things are deeply intertwined, and they come together and are made visible in specific architectural projects that we hope you are able to identify, analyze, and help us learn from. Does that make sense? One last thing.
One last, please. Thank you. So just in case we have doubts, we are meeting right here in June 30, 10 a.m. Okay, next Tuesday. So
Here's the T stop.
this is a key stop. This is the city hall, and we're meeting in this corner. June 30, 10 a.m. Any doubt about that? Okay,
Yes, sir.
spread the voice. You do.
Okay, thank you, everyone.